Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be talking about something that's super important for anyone who has a website and wants people to actually find it. We're diving into the world of crawl budget.
Ooh, yeah, crawl budget.
I think a lot of people have probably heard this term before, but might not really understand exactly what it means. So,
Right.
to kick things off, how would you explain crawl budget to someone who's maybe hearing about it for the first time?
Um, well, it's kind of like if you think about it, like Google's a librarian,
Yeah.
and they've got this massive library, the entire internet, to try to organize and index,
Yeah.
but they don't have infinite time and resources, so they have to figure out a system
Sure.
for how to prioritize, like which pages do they visit, how often, all that stuff.
Right. It's almost like they've got a limited amount of energy to spend on each website.
Exactly. That's a good way to think about it. So crawl budget is essentially how much of that energy or crawling power Google is willing to dedicate to your site.
So there's a technical side to it, like how much Google can crawl without overloading our website. And then there's this appetite aspect, how much Google wants to crawl our site based on how interesting and valuable they think it is.
Yep, that's a great way to break it down. We've got these two main components, crawl capacity limit and crawl demand.
Okay, so crawl capacity limit, that's like the technical side of things. What exactly is that all about?
Well, think of it like a speed limit Google sets to avoid overwhelming your website's servers.
Mm.
Like if Googlebot tried to go through every page on your website super fast,
Yeah,
all at once, it could slow down your site
right.
or even crash it.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Definitely not ideal.
Yeah.
So Google analyzes your site and figures out how many pages it can handle being crawled per day
Yeah.
without causing problems. That's your crawl capacity limit.
Okay, so that makes sense. So if my website is fast and runs smoothly, I'm going to have a higher crawl capacity limit. But if it's slow or full of errors, Google's going to crawl it less often.
Exactly. So making sure your site is technically sound is the first step.
Okay, so let's talk about site speed then. What are some things people can do to speed up their websites and potentially get that crawl capacity limit higher?
Well, image optimization is a big one. Big, bulky image files are often a major culprit when it comes to slow loading times.
Right.
So using tools to compress your images without sacrificing quality can make a big difference.
Gotcha. What about other things? I've heard of browser caching.
Yes, browser caching is another great way to improve site speed. It basically allows repeat visitors to load your website faster
Uh-huh.
because their browser remembers certain elements.
Okay, so it's like it doesn't have to download everything from scratch every time.
Precisely. And then, of course, choosing a good web hosting provider is crucial. A fast, reliable server can really make or break your site speed.
Right, the foundation of everything.
Exactly. You need a good foundation to build upon.
Okay, so we've talked about crawl capacity limit, that technical speed limit, but now I want to dig into this idea of crawl demand. How much Google wants to crawl our website.
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting.
So what determines how much Google wants to crawl our site?
Well, it all comes down to how interesting and valuable Google thinks your content is.
Okay, so valuable content, that makes sense. But what are some of the specific things that Google looks for?
Well, one thing they pay attention to is what they call perceived inventory.
Perceived
Right.
inventory.
It basically means Google tries to crawl all the URLs it knows about on your site.
Hmm.
But if you have a bunch of pages that are just duplicates
Oh, I see.
or content that's not really valuable
Yeah.
to users, well, it's kind of like you're wasting Google's time,
Yeah.
and that can hurt your overall crawl budget.
Right, because Google's going to think, why am I wasting my energy crawling all these pages that aren't actually offering anything unique?
Exactly. And that can mean they have less energy left to crawl the pages that are valuable.
So it's like having a shop full of empty shelves, not very enticing.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Good analogy.
What about popularity? Does that play a role in crawl demand?
Oh, absolutely. If your website is getting a lot of traffic
Uh-huh.
and backlinks from other reputable sites,
Okay.
it's a signal to Google that your content is popular and probably worth crawling more often.
So it's like the more buzz you create, the more Google's going to pay attention.
Yep, popularity definitely matters.
And what about freshness? I've heard that Google really likes fresh content.
Oh, absolutely. Staleness is definitely a factor that affects crawl demand. Google's constantly looking for new, up-to-date information.
So keeping your website fresh and updated is key.
Exactly. Regularly publishing new blog posts, articles, whatever it is you create, shows Google that your site is active and relevant.
So keep those digital shelves stocked with fresh goodies. Are there any other big things that can influence crawl demand?
Yeah, big changes to your website. Things like a redesign, switching platforms, or even changing your domain name can all trigger increased crawling. It's like putting up a big under new management sign.
Uh-huh, I see. Google needs to come check things out and see what's new.
Precisely. So
Yeah.
those big changes can definitely impact crawl demand.
Okay, so we've got these two sides of the coin: crawl capacity limit, the technical stuff, and then crawl demand, which is more about the quality and appeal of our website. And it sounds like they both have to work together.
Yeah, it's like you could have this wide open door, meaning a high crawl capacity limit, but if there's nothing inside worth seeing, Google's not going to spend much time there.
Right, so it's not just enough to have the capacity to handle a lot of crawling. You also need the content that makes Google want to keep coming back for more.
That's a great way to put it. It's about finding that balance between the technical and the creative aspects of SEO.
Now, I'm curious about how people try to optimize for crawl budget. I've heard these terms white hat and black hat SEO thrown around. What's the difference between those?
Well, that's a really important distinction.
Right.
White hat SEO is all about playing by the rules.
Okay.
It's like being that honest shop owner who focuses on providing high-quality products,
Mm-hmm.
great customer service,
Yep.
building trust with customers.
Right, playing the long game.
Exactly. It's about building a sustainable online presence that's going to last.
And black hat SEO, what's that all about?
Well, black hat SEO is more like that shady shop owner who uses deceptive advertising,
Uh-oh.
tricks people into buying things they don't need,
Right.
cutting corners to try to make a quick buck.
So
Oh.
trying to game the system.
Yeah, and while they might see some success in the short term, it's not going to last
Mm.
because Google's constantly evolving,
Right.
getting better at detecting and penalizing these manipulative practices.
So it's really risky to try to play those games.
It is. You're much better off sticking with white hat tactics and building a solid foundation for your website.
So what are some examples of black hat tactics that people try to use?
Oh, well, one is keyword stuffing, which is basically cramming as many keywords as possible into your content, making it sound super unnatural and robotic.
Yeah, I've definitely seen websites like that. It's like reading a dictionary entry instead of an actual article.
Exactly. And it's just not a good experience for users.
Yeah.
Another shady tactic is using hidden text.
Hidden text.
Yeah, it's like trying to trick Google by putting keywords on your page in the same color as the background, making them invisible to visitors but detectable by search engines.
Oh, wow, that's sneaky.
It is. And then there's manipulative links, which is basically trying to artificially inflate your rankings by building backlinks in unnatural ways, like buying links or participating in link schemes.
So it's all about faking popularity and relevance instead of earning it legitimately.
Exactly. And Google's getting better and better at spotting those fake signals.
So these black hat tactics, they might seem tempting for a quick boost, but ultimately they can really damage your website's reputation.
Absolutely. And even get you penalized by Google.
Yeah, so sticking to white hat practices,
Mm-hmm.
focusing on creating valuable content, optimizing our website,
Yeah.
making it a good experience for users, that's really the key to long-term SEO success.
It really is. It's all about building a sustainable online presence that's going to benefit both your users and your business in the long run.
Now, I've heard that Google likes to keep its algorithms a closely guarded secret. So if we don't know exactly how they work, how can we be sure we're doing the right things for SEO? It can feel a bit like a guessing game sometimes.
Yeah, I hear you. It can be frustrating not knowing exactly what Google's looking
Mhm.
for.
Right.
But even though they don't reveal the exact formulas behind their algorithms, they do give us guidelines and best practices to follow. It's like, a chef who won't share their exact recipe,
Yeah,
but they'll give you some general tips for baking a delicious cake.
I like that analogy. So even though we don't know the precise measurements or ingredients, we can still follow the basic principles to get a good result.
Exactly. And the good news is that those core principles of SEO haven't really changed that much over the years. It still all comes down to creating great content, optimizing your website for users, and building genuine relationships to earn backlinks.
So even though the specifics might shift, the foundation remains the same.
Precisely.
Now, speaking of Google and its algorithms, I know they frequently release updates that can really shake things up in the SEO world.
Yeah, those algorithm updates can definitely be a bit nerve-wracking.
Definitely. So can you talk about some of the big algorithm updates that Google has rolled out over the years and how those updates have impacted websites?
Absolutely. Let's start with Caffeine, which was this major overhaul of their indexing system. It really ramped up their crawling speed.
So if I'm publishing new content regularly, regularly, that helps me because Google's constantly looking for that fresh stuff.
Exactly. Caffeine was a game changer for websites that were already on top of their content game.
Hmm.
They saw their new content appearing in the search results much faster.
So for those who are already doing things right, it was like a boost.
Yeah, it really highlighted the importance of consistent content creation. Websites that embraced that change and started publishing more frequently, they definitely saw the benefits.
Now, Panda was another big one that focused on content quality.
Yes.
I imagine that was a bit of a wake-up call for some websites. Can you give some examples of how Panda separated well, let's say the high-quality websites from the low-quality ones?
Oh, yeah. Panda was a turning point for content quality. Websites that were just scraping or rehashing content from other places, they saw their rankings drop significantly.
So they couldn't just get away with that anymore.
Nope, they had to start creating original, valuable content that actually provided something useful to users.
Hmm.
On the other hand, websites that were already investing in high-quality content, they actually saw their rankings improve.
So Panda really rewarded those who were already doing things right.
It did. It really emphasized the importance of creating content for humans, not just for search engines.
Okay, and then there's this Penguin.
Ah, yes, Penguin. This one targeted manipulative link building practices.
Right.
So websites that had been buying links, participating in those shady link schemes, they saw their rankings plummet almost overnight.
Ouch. That must have been rough.
It was a major shakeup for the SEO industry. But websites that had been focusing on earning legitimate backlinks through, quality content and outreach, they actually saw their rankings improve after Penguin. It was a good sign that Google was getting better at recognizing and rewarding ethical practices.
Right. So it wasn't just about quantity anymore. It was about quality.
Exactly. And those are just a few examples of the big algorithm updates that Google has rolled out over the years.
It seems like these updates really shifted the focus from those quick tricks and shortcuts to a more sustainable long-term approach.
They did. Google wants to provide the best possible experience for their users.
Right.
And that means rewarding websites that are doing things the right way.
Now, our source material also mentions that Google keeps their algorithms a closely guarded secret.
Oh, yeah, they do.
So we don't actually know exactly how they work.
Nope, it's a bit of a black box.
So how do we know we're doing the right things if we don't know exactly what Google's looking for?
Well, that's a great question, and one that SEO professionals have been grappling with for years. It's true that we don't know the exact formulas, but Google does give us clues. They publish guidelines, best practices, things like that. It's like, imagine you're trying to figure out how to get to a certain destination, but you don't have a map. You might have some general directions, some landmarks to look for, but you have to use your intuition and experience to fill in the gaps.
So we have to be a bit like detectives, piecing together the clues and using our best judgment to make informed decisions.
Exactly. And luckily, those fundamental principles of SEO, providing valuable content, optimizing for users, earning legitimate backlinks, those have remained pretty consistent over time.
So even though the specifics might change, the foundation is still there.
That's right.
It's good to know that some things in the SEO world don't change too drastically.
Definitely. But it's still important to stay up to date with the latest trends and best practices. Because even though those core principles remain the same, the way we apply them might need to evolve as Google's algorithms change.
Right, and it's a constant learning process. We have to be adaptable and willing to adjust our strategies as needed.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've laid a solid foundation for understanding crawl budget and some of the key factors that influence it. Now, let's take a closer look at some real-world examples of how those big Google algorithm updates have impacted websites.
Yes, let's dive into those.
Okay, so we've been talking about these big algorithm updates that Google rolls out, and, they can really shake things up in the SEO world.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So I'm curious to hear about some specific examples of how websites have been impacted by these updates.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Let's start with caffeine. You mentioned that it's sped up Google's crawling process significantly.
Yeah, it really did. It was a huge change.
So for websites that were already publishing fresh content regularly, did they see a benefit from that?
Oh, absolutely. Caffeine was like a dream come true for websites that were already prioritizing fresh content. They saw their new stuff getting indexed so much faster, which gave them a real edge.
Because caffeine rewarded those who were already on top of their game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It really emphasized that consistent content creation was key.
Mm.
And websites that embraced that saw some great results.
Okay, let's move on to Panda. Now that update focused on content quality.
Right.
which sounds like it could have been a bit of a wake-up call for some websites.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Panda was a game changer. For example, websites that had been relying on thin content,
Mm.
just scraping content from other sites or duplicating stuff, they saw their rankings plummet.
So they couldn't just get away with that anymore.
Nope. Panda forced them to step up their game and start creating original, high-quality content that actually provided value to users.
And what about websites that were already creating good content?
They were rewarded. They saw their rankings improve because they had been focusing on quality all along.
So Panda really leveled the playing field and made quality content king.
It did. It made it clear that Google was serious about providing users with the best possible experience. And that meant prioritizing websites that were offering something truly valuable.
Okay, and then there was Penguin, the update that targeted link spam.
Right, Penguin was all about cracking down on manipulative link-building tactics. Websites that had been buying links or participating in shady link schemes, they took a big hit.
So the shortcuts didn't work anymore.
Not at all. Penguin showed that Google was getting much smarter at detecting those unnatural links and penalizing websites that were using them.
What about websites that were already building backlinks the right way?
They did great. Their rankings often improved after Penguin because they had been focusing on earning legitimate backlinks through quality content and genuine outreach.
So it sounds like those three big updates really shifted the focus from trying to trick Google to actually providing value to users.
Absolutely. It became clear that sustainable SEO success was all about playing by the rules, creating great content, optimizing for user experience, and building genuine relationships to earn backlinks.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of playing by Google's rules, but our source material also mentions that Google keeps its algorithms a closely guarded secret.
Oh yeah, that's true. They don't exactly give us a roadmap to SEO success.
So how do we know if we're doing the right things if we don't know exactly how those algorithms work?
Well, it's kind of like trying to solve a puzzle without all the pieces. You have to use your knowledge and experience to figure out how everything fits together.
So we have to be a bit like detectives looking for clues and patterns.
Exactly. And the good news is that Google does provide some guidance. They publish guidelines, best practices, case studies, things like that to give us a better understanding of what they're looking for.
So it's not like we're completely in the dark.
Not at all.
Hmm.
But it does require some effort and a willingness to learn and adapt as Google's algorithms evolve.
And I imagine that staying up to date on the latest SEO news and trends is crucial.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The SEO landscape is constantly changing, so it's important to keep learning and refining your strategies.
Our source material also mentions that a typical SEO project can take around a year to show significant results.
Yeah, that's a pretty common time frame. SEO is definitely a long game.
So patience is key.
It is. You can't expect to see results overnight. It takes time to build a strong online presence and earn trust from Google.
It's like planting a garden. You have to nurture it and give it time to grow.
Exactly. And while you're waiting for those SEO efforts to pay off, you should focus on providing value to your users. That's what will keep them coming back even before you hit the top of the search results.
So it's about building a sustainable online presence that's beneficial to both your users and your business.
Precisely. It's about creating something that has real value and will stand the test of time.
Now, our source also talks about the cost of SEO and website development, and it mentions that the prices can vary widely.
Yeah, that's true. There's no one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to SEO pricing.
So what are some of the factors that can influence the costs?
Well, it depends on a lot of things, like the experience and expertise of the SEO professional or agency. You hire the scope of the project, the competitiveness of your industry, and the current state of your website.
So it's important to get personalized quotes from reputable sources and not just assume that the cheapest option is the best.
Exactly. You want to make sure you're investing in quality SEO services that will actually benefit your website in the long run.
Now, the source material also links to a really valuable resource, Google Search Central. Can you talk a bit about why that's such a helpful tool for people who are interested in SEO?
Oh yeah, Google Search Central is like the holy grail of SEO information. It's Google's official guide to SEO, so it's packed with tons of valuable resources like guidelines, best practices, tools, and even case studies.
So if you want to learn about SEO straight from the source, that's the place to go.
It is. It's a must-read for anyone who wants to understand how Google sees the web and how to optimize their website accordingly.
And it's free.
Exactly. You can't beat that.
The source material also emphasizes the importance of website security, specifically switching from HTTP to HTTPS.
Yeah, that's a big one these days.
Can you explain why that's so crucial?
Sure. Switching to HTTPS is all about adding an extra layer of security to your website. It encrypts the communication between your website and the user's browser, which makes it much harder for hackers to steal sensitive information.
So it's like adding a lock to your shop door to protect your customers and their valuable data.
Exactly. And it's not just about protecting your users. Google also considers HTTPS to be a ranking factor. They want to make sure that they're directing users to safe and secure websites.
So it's good for both user experience and SEO.
Yep, like a win-win.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the importance of playing by Google's rules, creating valuable content, and optimizing for user experience. But our source material also mentions a little trick for uncovering hidden content on a website.
Oh yeah, using the sitemapindex.xml file.
Right. What's that all about, and why would someone want to use that?
Well, the sitemapindex.xml file is basically a roadmap of all the pages on a website. And it can include pages that aren't linked to from the main navigation or easily accessible to users.
So it's like a secret map that reveals all the hidden pathways and rooms in a website.
Exactly. And SEO professionals can use this file to get a complete picture of a website's structure and content, which can be helpful for things like technical audits, content analysis, and link building.
So it's a valuable tool for those who want to dig a little deeper.
It is. It can reveal some interesting insights about a website and how it's organized.
It sounds like we've just scratched the surface of this fascinating world of SEO.
Oh, we definitely have. There's always more to learn and explore.
Well, before we wrap things up, I want to revisit this idea that Google keeps its algorithms shrouded in secrecy.
Right. It's one of the biggest mysteries in the SEO world.
So even with all the data and analysis we do, there's still this element of the unknown.
That's true. And that's what keeps SEO so interesting and challenging.
But despite that mystery, our source material highlights some enduring principles that can guide us toward SEO success.
Yes, those principles are like the North Star of SEO. They can help us stay on course even as Google's algorithms continue to evolve.
So let's dive into those guiding principles and explore how we can use them to navigate the ever-changing landscape of SEO.
Sounds good. Let's go.
Okay, so we've been on this journey through the world of SEO. We've talked about crawl budget, algorithm updates, all sorts of things. But before the break, you mentioned these sort of enduring principles that can guide us towards success in SEO. What are those?
Well, yeah. It's kind of like, even though Google likes to keep things a bit mysterious, there are these fundamental guidelines that have stood the test of time.
Okay, so what's the first one? What's our guiding star in the SEO universe?
The first one, and this might seem obvious, but it's really important, is to provide valuable content.
Okay, so valuable content. What does that really mean? What makes content valuable in the eyes of Google?
It's about creating content that's genuinely helpful and informative for your target audience. Stuff that answers their questions and provides solutions to their problems.
I see. So it's not just about writing for search engines, it's about writing for actual humans.
Exactly. If your content is so good that people would naturally want to share it and link to it, then you're on the right track.
Right. It has to have that inherent value that makes people want to engage with it.
Yep. And the second principle is to optimize for user experience.
User experience. Okay. So that's about more than just the content itself, right?
Right. It's about making sure your website is easy to use, easy to navigate, and enjoyable to spend time on.
Okay. So things like site speed, mobile friendliness, clear navigation, all those things matter.
They do. Because Google wants to send its users to websites that provide a positive experience.
So if your website is clunky and frustrating to use, people are going to bounce right off and Google's going to notice that.
Exactly. And it can hurt your rankings.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. What's the third guiding principle?
The third principle is earning legitimate backlinks.
Ah, backlinks. We talked about the dark side of those earlier with Black Hat SEO. So how do we earn backlinks the right way?
It's all about building genuine relationships with other website owners in your niche.
Yeah.
Earning those backlinks through the quality of your content, through outreach and participation in online communities.
So it's not about trying to trick the system. It's about building a genuine reputation as a valuable resource.
Precisely. When other reputable websites link to yours, it's like they're vouching for you. And Google sees those links as a strong signal of trust and authority.
It's like getting a recommendation from someone you respect. It carries a lot more weight.
Exactly. And those kinds of backlinks can really boost your rankings.
So these three principles, they all seem to tie back to that idea of white hat SEO that we talked about earlier. It's about focusing on the long game, building a sustainable online presence that's rooted in genuine value.
Absolutely. It's about creating a website and content that's beneficial to both your users and your business in the long run.
Well, this has been a fantastic deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much about SEO. It can seem overwhelming at times, but having these guiding principles to fall back on is really helpful.
Yeah, SEO can definitely feel complex, but at its core, it's about understanding your users, providing them with valuable content, and optimizing their experience on your website.
And it's about building those genuine connections and relationships online.
Absolutely. It's not just about algorithms and technical stuff. It's about creating something that has real value and contributes to the online community.
To all our listeners out there, we hope this deep dive has helped demystify the world of SEO and given you some practical tips for improving your website's visibility. And remember, even though Google likes to keep some things a secret, those enduring principles will always guide you in the right direction.
Yeah, happy optimizing, everyone.